So, when you hear the word security, what pops into your head? Probably armies, borders, maybe spies, the usual stuff. But what if that entire way of thinking is missing the bigger picture? Well, today, we're diving into something called critical security studies, a perspective that basically flips our whole idea of what it means to be safe right on its head.
Okay, let's just start with a really simple, but you'll see a really powerful question. When we talk about national security, who are we actually trying to keep safe? Is it the state itself, the government, the institutions? Or is it the actual people living inside that state? Because believe me, the answer you give to that one question changes absolutely everything.
So, to really get what critical security studies is trying to do, we first have to understand what it was pushing back against. And that story starts with the classic, traditional way of looking at security. For a long, long time, this was pretty much the whole definition, laid out famously by the scholar Stephen Walt. Security studies was, well, simple. It was about war. It was about how countries use their armies to defend themselves from other countries. The focus was laser sharp, and military power was the name of the game. You see, this whole old-school worldview was built on a few key ideas. It just assumed that states are the only real players on the world stage, that there is no global 911 to call. And because of that, war is just this natural problem that you have to manage. The goal wasn't to question the system, but to solve problems within it. But then, history happened, and as the certainties of the Cold War started to thaw, this traditional state-first way of seeing the world began to look, well, a little outdated. I mean, the fall of the Berlin Wall wasn't just a huge political event. For the people studying this stuff, it was a full-blown crisis. The traditional theories, which saw the world as this permanent chess match between two superpowers, they just couldn't explain how such a massive change could happen so peacefully. All of a sudden, it felt like the old map just didn't match the world anymore. And the cracks just started appearing everywhere. First, you had the simple fact that the biggest, ugliest conflicts of the 1990s weren't happening between countries, but inside them. Then there was the moral problem. How can you keep saying the state is the source of security when so many governments were the biggest threat to their own people? And economically, it was becoming painfully obvious that the global system was creating deep poverty and instability for millions. And this quote from Ken Booth, man, it just nails it. It really gets to the heart of the challenge. For so many people around the globe, the real threat isn't some foreign army coming across the border. It's the very government that claims it's there to protect them. So with the old model clearly struggling, something new was needed. And this is where critical security studies, or CSS for short, steps onto the stage. And it doesn't just suggest a few tweaks, it proposes a total shift in how we see things. And whoa, what a shift it is. Instead of focusing on states, critical security studies says, hey, let's focus on actual people. Instead of only looking at military threats, it says we need to look at everything that makes us unsafe. And most importantly, the goal isn't just to tinker with the system we have. The goal is something much, much bigger: emancipation. And this quote from Robert Cox is basically the engine driving this whole new approach. It's a reminder that no theory is neutral. They're all tools. Traditional security theory? Well, it worked pretty well for the states and the powerful people already in charge. Critical theory asks a totally different question. What if we built a theory that was for the powerless? So what does that actually look like? It means we start seeing threats in a much broader way. A threat isn't just a missile. It can be climate change that destroys your home, a financial crash that wipes out your savings, political oppression that silences you, or the slow collapse of your community. All of these things make people profoundly insecure. And this all leads to the most radical move that critical security studies makes. It argues that the thing we need to protect, the ultimate goal, isn't a border or government. It's the individual human being. Their life, their freedom, their well-being. Security has to start with the real, lived experience of a person for it to mean anything at all. This brings us right to the heart of critical security studies. Its most ambitious, and its most controversial idea, that the real goal of security isn't just about being safe, it's about being free. As the scholar Ken Booth puts it, true security is emancipation. It's about freeing people from all the big things that stop them from living the life they would choose for themselves. And that doesn't just mean freedom from war. It means freedom from poverty, from political tyranny, from a lack of basic rights. Here's another way to think about it. CSS makes a big distinction between just surviving and being truly secure. Survival is, well, it's just your heart beating, you're not dead. But security, what Booth calls survival plus, that's having the actual ability to not just exist, but to truly live a full life. So this whole thing really boils down to a couple of core ideas you see right here. You have statism, that's the old way, the state-first approach that this new theory is challenging. And then you have emancipation, the idea of freeing people from all the constraints holding them back. That becomes the new North Star for what security should be all about. Okay, but linking security to this grand idea of emancipation, it sounds great, right? What could be wrong with freedom? Well, it's not that simple. And this way of thinking has some really powerful critiques of its own. Is it a noble goal? Or maybe a dangerous one? So the first big critique asks a really sharp question. Whose definition of emancipation are we even using here? Is it a truly universal human goal? Or is it a specifically Western idea that could, maybe, be used to justify a new kind of imperialism, all done in the name of freeing other people, whether they like it or not? Another really big concern is about the word security itself. I mean, think about it. Historically, when a government labels something a security threat, what happens next? You get emergency powers, secret surveillance, often a military-style response. So if we start talking about environmental security, do we risk treating a complex problem like climate change as if it's a war we need to fight?
Then you've got this critique from a totally different angle. These critics argue that for all this lofty talk about freedom, CSS doesn't focus enough on maybe the biggest source of insecurity and unfreedom on the planet, global capitalism. The argument goes, you can't really be emancipated if you're trapped inside a system of vast economic inequality.
And finally, some argue that trying to mash security and emancipation together is just a fundamental mistake. The language and tools of security have, for centuries, been used by states to crush social movements and silence dissent. So should a movement for freedom really be using the language of its historical opponent? So, at the end of the day, critical security studies doesn't hand us a neat little package of easy answers. And maybe that's the whole point. Its real value is that it forces us to stop and ask much better, much deeper questions about who and what we're actually trying to protect in the first place. Which brings us right back to where we started. Is security, at its core, a defensive act, about protecting borders and building walls? Or is it an expansive one, about freeing human potential and tearing down the walls that hold people back? That question, that's the challenge that critical security studies leaves us with.